Good morning. Welcome to episode 341 of Hobby Hotline, the caffeine edition. What's going on, Alex? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I always have to say that intro, I love it. It's just energetic. Everything else, it's
Starbucks. It's Starbucks in the song.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to go. We're going to crack this open. Gordon from Hawaii. What's up, Gordon?
Ooh,
Appreciate
super
that.
over there.
Yeah, Larry. Good morning. How you doing, Larry? Mad City Brew. And guys, we're going to have Lauren joining us in a minute. She's traveling and finding Wi-Fi in the middle of nowhere.
The one time I'm not traveling.
I know. You and I see each other, I think, in person traveling as much as we do online. So you and I, speaking of which, ran into each other at Chantilly recently.
We sure did.
But you do. What's up, Ruben? Yeah, work for a living sometimes. Sorry about that, but I miss you guys. Let me catch up here. What's up, Stooks? Foul ball. Yeah, 5 a.m. in Hawaii, Gordon. There you go.
Dedication there.
Yeah, I know it's for Army, but I appreciate you tuning in. So Chantilly, Boston, what other shows you've been to? What's the vibe out there?
Yeah. So Chantilly, Boston, Philly, went down to Charlotte, and a couple other ones that are here in the Richmond, Virginia Beach area and everything else like that. The vibes are incredible. Everyone's worried about the economy, the tariffs, everything else, right? That's out there. But these shows are crowded with people, right? These people are coming out, and it's not even just the bigger shows. It's the smaller little 40 to 60 table shows are just loaded with people, backpacks hitting each other and, in the aisles and everything. And it's great to see.
Larry, always awesome seeing you, buddy. I'm sorry I have to keep an eye on the table. People like Army walking around, you got to keep an eye on them.
Whoa, calm down.
I'm just kidding. He's there to keep an eye on everybody else, is the truth. Lauren, welcome.
Sorry, I lost my Wi-Fi, so I had to move. I apologize. Very unprofessional.
Oh, stop it. It's Hobby Hotline. We're here to have fun. So just saying good morning and seeing how you're doing.
Good. Yeah, I am. We're on a road trip. We're heading to the Dallas card show, and we have a camper, so sometimes we drive out that way. So right now I'm in Arkansas.
That's a long trip.
Usually Wi-Fi's good, but it's always unpredictable.
You going to the early one, or are you talking about the one the May 1st through 4th?
Yeah, it's May 1st through 4th, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
we're a couple weeks
slowly
early.
but surely making our way out there from Florida.
I'll be there too. I'm going to be there myself.
Well, here Stooks says,
awesome.
Stooks says 525 table Minnesota show was busy, big line to get in, door open to the public.
Nice.
Alex, that's close to Chantilly, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right down the road. I think, hop, skip, and a jump.
Right but I'm saying the 525 tables, Chantilly was what, 650?
Yes, I think they
like that?
Over 650 some tables, and that's really, it's crazy because the Chantilly show is known for being one of the the biggest shows on the East Coast, but the Philly show, which is right up the road, a few hours up the road, is over 1,000 table show. I didn't know until last year when I went to the Philly show for the first time of how big that show is. But Chantilly is a whole nother breed because of all the autographed guests that they bring in 3 times a year. They do the show 3 times a year within a 6-month period, and then from October to April, there's nothing, which it's crazy. But it works. It works for them.
You guys will have some friends in Dallas. Dukes will be there. I don't know if anybody knows off the top of their head how many tables the Dallas show is. I've never been. I'll admit that's on my to-do list for card shows.
It's a lot. I can't remember because it's 2 separate rooms. You have the main room and then you have the side room.
Lauren,
yeah, it's a lot. My co-host here It's $450. It's a really good show.
Chris Harris, who I saw in Chantilly, huge football show. I think that gets back to Army, what you were saying. It's the times of year. It's hard to get baseball players right now.
Yeah, going back with Dallas, Dallas actually, just happens to bring some of the Rangers, the current Rangers in, during that show. And one of the things that, people have said at the CSA show is just like, if you're there when the Nationals are playing, try to get the national players in. But you got to remember, like, these shows are on the weekends. And a lot of times the weekend games are middle of the day, like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock or whatever. And it's harder for them to, doing everything and stuff like that. So trust me, I'm talking with the actual people at the shows. They're trying, they want to, but instead they bring in the Hall of Famers, the all-time greats, everything else, and try to, these first 2 shows in the beginning of the year, April and June, they bring all the active football players in. Not as many Commanders that people are wanting. Everyone wants that big one, Jaden Daniels.
Oh, yeah, I'm from Baltimore. I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, you've been fine with your Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all them.
Cal Ripken, we get,
yeah.
Jim Palmer, yeah. But you know what? To your point, they do a lot of Hall of Famers, and I think that is huge for collectors. I think there's a lot of people out there that chase Hall of Fame autographs. I don't think that's a secret, and I think that's one of the things that makes the show so cool.
Yeah, especially the April shows, because they always try to get that last, the ones that just got, accepted into the Hall of Fame for football, right? That the class from this year were all there, -1, of course, and were there signing, especially, Sterling Sharp was there signing right next to his brother Shannon, now Hall of Fame. That was awesome. Which is pretty cool.
That was awesome. Ruben, you got my Johnny Unitas rookie. Oh, what a cool card. Right now I'm shopping for a center Johnny Bench rookie. If anybody's got one, DM me. So the card shows in general. Lauren, what's the vibe you're getting on the floor? Modern, vintage, kids, adults, just overall kind of like what's are you getting from people?
A lot more people asking about Pokemon, talking about Pokemon. We don't do a lot of Pokemon, but we, what few we have will, it goes very quickly and usually for very close to the asking price. So that's it. I mean, I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. It's been on a very big upswing lately. So yeah, really, that's the biggest thing that sticks out to me right now is that there is a big shift towards Pokemon. I think a lot of people who typically do sports are also kind of like examining Pokemon, maybe not like diving in completely, but definitely talking about it.
You seeing the same thing?
I 100% am. And I've talked to a lot of individuals about it. It's just the TCG aspect of collecting and buying and selling. They don't go, they're not like, the sellers and the buyers aren't like sports individuals, going to eBay, seeing the last comps, the last comps for Pokemon and everything, they use the TCG, different guides and stuff. They'll give you close to 100% what the last one sold for. They're not saying, hey, the last 5 is average of, this, can I get 70%? No, because they know as soon as someone walks away, someone else will come up and pay for that price. So the TCG buyers and sellers, they're very, very, on point with their prices, and people come and go to this table so fast. And there's a lot more shows that, have started that, especially in this area, that I've seen that were, I would say 80% sports and there were 20% Pokemon, and it's flopped. It's now like 80% Pokemon and 20% sports, and it's wild.
Well, that's exactly what Bo 1 Million Cubs is saying here. The Madison Pokemon show, which is Pokemon only, next Sunday, sold out with 140 dealer tables. Mm-hmm. So to both of your points, if they're pulling off a complete show, almost like Strongsville for vintage, that says something about the strength of that piece of the market. Couple other comments here. Stuke said a dealer he talked to did very close to national sales at the last Dallas show. So
it's big.
That is showing the strength of the market. I think it's a sleeper strong market right now. In Hawaii, we're majority Pokemon. All good. It brings folks in. Hey, collect what you love. There's no right. There's no wrong.
100%.
Speaking of which, I picked up a 52 Topps Dodger team set foul ball with the Jackie. Very freaking cool. I'm not going to get up and show you, but I have my 52 Jackie blue T-shirt over there that I was wearing around the house before I got online. Gordon, we had a small 30 dealer show yesterday, and only 4 to 5 sold sports cards. So that's a 90-10 split, 85-10, 85-15. So, you know, I got a list of topics I wanted to hit, but let's stop on this for a second. Is TCG 2025?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to these days. You know, I'm not into it. I mean, it depends. Do you put like V Friends in TCG? Because with its huge release coming out with Topps Chrome, like, does it fall in that realm? Because it is an actual game. It is a playing game, and that's going to be a huge release next month.
That was an intelligent question. You threw me off guard. I do think the non-sports entertainment category, including TCG, will be huge. So I don't know.
I agree, because I don't know if anyone saw that, you know, Fanatics put out that they're looking for the manager to run that department, right? And I've said this from time to time again, the connections that Michael Rubin and that group has with all these entertainers and, you know, everybody else is like, when is their like version of Pop Century coming out for Topps, right? You know,
Yep.
So I imagine that's eventually going to happen, and that's going to help that entertainment aspect of Topps.
Who's better than me
really
at knowing? I'm sorry, Lauren.
No, just saying that's a really good point. That you're right. Like, we haven't really touched on entertainment a lot, and Michael Rubin does have the connection. So if anybody's gonna expand like Pop Century, because Pop Century is a very popular product for Leaf.
100%.
So, you know, for Topps to get their hands on it, the way that they've I'm sorry, I'm coming back to WrestleMania again, but like the way they've integrated Travis Scott with WrestleMania, like that's been huge for Topps and for, you know, collectors. And so yeah, like uniting the two, that's really that might be the next stop. I think Alex made really good points about that.
Well, then let's just jump ahead because I like those points. We wanted to talk some WWE anyway today. So let's just very professional transition there. I appreciate that. Well, is there perhaps a buyback program or something going on?
It's a little bit, right?
Oh, I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah.
What's the program for people that haven't heard?
All right, so you have WWE Topps Chrome this year, 2025. Just like the previous buybacks, like they're going off of winners. So, you know, the baseball buyback was the MVPs for the AL and NL. UFC did the buyback of the winners of one of the main events. So WFD, they're doing the same thing. There's 2 main events, 2 nights, and they decided on 2 different matches. You have Jey Uso and Gunther, and then you have Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton. Now, a lot of people get it mixed up, but if you look at my article that I wrote on Collecting with SI, it breaks it down 100% on how to figure out which card is which. I just happen to have them right in front of me. So
just so happens.
Yeah, it just so happens, right? You know, so it's the base cards, none of the insert, none of the autos, just the base cards. You have a base card. This will be a 20. If Gunther wins, this will be a $20 credit to your LCS, the ones that actually participate. If you go to Topps.com, you can actually search to see which LCSs are participating. Then there's a million different refractors. There's this is just like the hyper of Jey Uso. This is I think the checkerboard. These are all $40 cards. Whoever wins, you know, for credit. And then you have the numbered parallels. The numbered parallels broken down by going from $100 to $200, depending on, you know, what it is. And I think this one out of $249 is, if I'm not mistaken, it's either $100 or $200 card. I think it's a $100 card because it's 99 and less is a $200 buyback credit. So this will, if Charlotte wins, which I need Charlotte and Jay to win to maximize my number for the amount of buybacks that I have, will be $100 credit back to any of the LCSs that participate.
Okay, crucial question. Your buyback money goes to what?
It depends on what the store has. So it really,
the answer
really
is back to the store.
100%. You know, and that's a great program because
Yep.
what Topps does with these now, we've seen because they've actually reintroduced them back into the products with Otani and Judge, and they actually some of them are signed, but they're really rare. I've only seen like one that have came out the following year, and what they do with the WWE ones will be very interesting. But yeah, it all depends. Like I'll take it in. I'll look to see what they have for, you know, Raw and slabs, and, you know, look at stuff around. Maybe some supplies I need to get because, you know, supplies are about to go up because it's crazy. But maybe I'll get some wax. I'm a degen. I love opening wax and everything. I'll just re-roll it into something else.
I like degen. I'm too old to have heard that one. Lauren, do you collect WWE, and have you heard about the patch releases?
I do collect a little bit, but more so we as degens open it. We enjoy opening it. It's really a fun product. Even with Panini, because they were recently with Panini and had, you know, select and everything. It's just really fun to open, you know, and WWE is entertaining, so it was really fun to open. And I think, you know, because we're big basketball people, it was more reasonable, you know, to spend money on. And it's just fun, you know. You can pop in and out of the WWE very easily, you know. I've seen people compare it to like a soap opera. Like you can jump in and out very easily. Yep. So it's a fun product. And I like Cody Rhodes. That's, you know, probably very basic and, you know, whatever, but I like him a lot. And he and John Cena, you know, like that's a really easy match for people to jump in and out of. And so yeah, I don't think it's, you know, just to kind of tie back to what we were talking about with TCG, I don't think it's necessarily going to have that big of an upswing, but I do think it's going to be bigger than it has been. Because of the ease of access. And that's another thing too, is that people have been saying, you know, with NBA, it's hard to watch games. You know, you can go an entire season without seeing some of the teams. And WWE is pretty accessible. You can watch it on Friday, on USA, on cable. You can watch it on Netflix, Monday Night Raw. If you have the Peacock app, you can see everything for WrestleMania this weekend. So, which I'm not saying that that's easy access, but that's reasonable access. Other than like you know, with NBA, you have to have excuse me, like the league pass, but then you have blackouts for your local team. So if you care about your local teams, you have to have another subscription. And then if you want to see the big header games, then you have to have, you know, cable and watch on, you know, like, so I know I'm kind of, you know, making a mountain out of a molehill with that question, but I think for collectors, it is more fun. It's for us, you know, we can jump in and out, you know, you can pick your favorite, and you can reasonably, you know, just like with the actual WWE with the products, you can jump in and out. The prices aren't like too crazy if you want to just kind of like dip your toes in and try it out. So
I have one caveat though. First off, with back to the buyback program, I'm really upset that Sapphire cards weren't included. So the reason why Sapphire is never included is because usually with Topps Chrome, Sapphire is a complete different product. They're
right.
not the same numbers, they're not the same images and everything. However, WWE was exactly the same cards, the same numbers, everything else, just the Sapphire print. The fact that they didn't add these to the buyback, I think it killed this product. No one wants to open Sapphire now because the prices were up. I mean, they're Sapphire boxes. They were like $400 or $500 a box, and now you can get them for like almost a little less than $300. No one wants to buy this because these aren't part of the buyback program, and I think they should have looked at that before they put their numbers out and everything, and because that really hurt a lot of shops. The other thing I wanted to talk about was WWE, I've been following it for years, and especially the card market. You have to be careful if you're one of those people buying, flipping, and everything else, buying, selling. Once WrestleMania happens, it's just like the Super Bowl happens, just like the World Series. Wrestling's not so much in the forefront so much because everyone's leading up to WrestleMania. Yes, you're going to have SummerSlam, you're going to have all these next pay-per-views, but WrestleMania is the granddaddy of them all, right? So you have to watch out the stuff that that you might be using to possibly sell because of these athletes. It's going to be all of a sudden wrestling's out of the news for a hot minute because no more WrestleMania.
One of the things for WrestleMania 41 and to your point is I think that Topps is trying to increase interest post WrestleMania to try to keep a chase going. So they've actually introduced a patch for WrestleMania, and then you also have a debut patch for Raw and somebody else. Remind me, I'm drawing a blank. SmackDown. Thank you. So you get the debut patch on the boot, most likely, except for John Cena's going to be on the back of his shoes. But they're creating a 101 auto chase patch. This has been successful in other sports with people searching for it and the athletes going for it. Lauren, you think it'll be just as popular in WWE?
I think so because it's something new. And again, I think with to tie back to like the Travis Scott thing, I think with wrestling, you can kind of try things a little bit. It doesn't feel as forced because WWE and celebrities have kind of always been like intermingled. So I think that like they can try a little bit, they can do some more experimenting. And patches are always cool. Autos are always cool. And they had that, the Topps Now chase for the triple auto. That was a huge deal. That was I think it was found this week. And that was a really big that was a big spike in the purchase of the Topps Now cards because people wanted that. So I think kind of making the WWE cards more in parallel with like what we traditionally like with like Logo Man and that kind of thing in other sports. I think it's a good I think it's a good transition to see, like, and wrestling, that's the thing too, is like fans in different sports kind of like like baseball fans prioritize different things than like basketball fans and that kind of thing. So I think it'll be a good way to gauge what wrestling fans are really into. Like, do I think it's cool? Yeah. But does the majority of wrestling collectors, are they interested in relics? Are they, do they care more about the auto than a relic? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it's received and, yeah.
So I see in the chat, people are calling it fake. It's not a sport, everything else, right? What other entertainment aspect, right? And minus, UFC fights, like every event that they do from SmackDown, Raw, all the pay-per-views are full. The whole place is filled to capacity. Not any of your sporting events, your major teams, even the Celtics, Lakers, whatever, have sold out games every game. Like these fans are die hard. Yes, it's acting. It is, but they're die hard fans, and I think that's where Fanatics with Fanatics Fest, the activation and stuff that they had with WWE and the cards right next door to it, were trying to combine the two, trying to get those fans to get introduced to more cards. And it actually did the vice versa. More of the card people got introduced to WWE that might not have been, had anything understanding of WWE. So bridging that gap and everything. But to say that, constantly say it's fake and everything, it's scripted. It is. But these are athletes. The stuff that they do, that they have to, they put their body on the line and stuff. They're selling out these arenas. There's a whole weekend, a whole week for WrestleMania, just like the Super Bowl. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to ignore all that.
There's nothing wrong with enjoying athletes, even if there's a story with it. And Lauren mentioned the soap opera aspect of being able to go in and out and know what it is. Nobody has to compare that to sports. You don't have to choose one over the other. They can be wonderful. They can be different, I can like music and I can like movies. I don't have to choose. And so, I think that people make too much of comparing the two. And I just think there's no reason to enjoy the product, collect what you love. I'll go back to that. I do want to say that I do think that chasing the match use, game use relics is an extremely cool thing. Ray Allen this week just chased down, I think it was his logo man. And we're seeing more and more athletes that are actually putting out their own bounties and, getting into it. Lauren, what do you think about the success of a program where the athletes are actually interested?
I think it's really cool. There's so many different takes you can have about it because, how do you compete? If you're a Ray Allen collector, how do you compete with Ray Allen to get a card you desire? So it's cool, but also you're like, I can't compete, So, but it is neat. It's always fun to see, like Grant Williams is into card collecting and, and I think he's interested more in other players. And I think that's what a lot of traditionally a lot of people have said, if, you give your favorite athlete a card of them, they're like, man, but if you give them somebody that they look up to or that they played with or, whatever, they're a little more passionate about that. But like Giannis collecting his own cards and, very clearly kind of stating the purpose of I'm interested in these, but I also want to save them for my children, that this is something I'm going to pass down to them. I think it's, I think it's just interesting. I don't really know if it's good or bad or, whatever, but it's interesting to see the motivation behind it, the interaction, the relationships, the storyline. I think that's, I think it's just interesting. So
Alex, if you had a patch card of yourself, would you be chasing it?
So I have some patch cards for myself. It's Gary from Hits Memorabilia. He used to make tube traders back in the day, 2010 time frame, and a lot of us YouTubers sent him. I had some uniforms that I was in Afghanistan, and I sent it to him. And he put them in cards. Of course, I would definitely chase that type of stuff. And there's so many individuals, and I think the power of social media is helping with them because you got Evan Carter, you have Mike Trout, you have Matt Strom, they have their own series, right? That they're doing with card collecting and stuff. Then there's people that are in the background that aren't as much. A lot of people don't know Cole Anthony is a diehard Pokemon collector.
Yeah.
Right.
Huge.
And he's down at he's down at Big League in Orlando. Shout out to Alan Nars. He's in there all the time, just coming in the shop, buying packs. He's just he wants to get these special tickets that you do the special wheel to get another pack and stuff. He's there for the Pokemon. It's wild.
I definitely have no chance of. I definitely have no chance of ever having my own patch card, unlike you, evidently. But I will seek out one if anybody wants to make me one. I'm happy to take it. I think they're super cool. I think when athletes get involved, it brings at an organic level the coolness to the product. We're so used to chasing our heroes and the guys that we watch, but when they want to do the same thing we're doing, that makes it so real. And I think that makes a connection with the athlete that it's hard to replicate. I mean, you can't stay after every game and get an autograph. You can't buy, and afford to buy flawless or whatever it is, for every player. But, the patch cards, I could see surpassing almost rookie cards. If it's, not a debut patch. I think game used, true, cool, whether it's Otani stuff from his home run chase or other stuff like that, that game used stuff that really happens organically in a special moment is cool. And it's the reason I think Topps Now and all the companies that do the instant cards are cool because you have a real moment that nobody planned. So, somebody did something. So, and now you turn it into something you can collect and keep. And so for those reasons, I just think it's freaking awesome.
It'd be very interesting. Giannis's first national appearances this year.
Yes,
Love to see him walk the floor. Now, I mean, he's going to get mobbed and everything up there, but I would love to see him go around and look at the cards since he included in it, trying to find his own stuff, whatever. I think that would be pretty cool.
And if you don't know, some of these people have buyers for them. So, if you work a table, you never know who you're talking to, or you never know who somebody's friends with or buying for. Because Giannis, like you said, he might stick out in the crowd.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, just a little bit. All right. One of the trends that I've been seeing, here we go. Brock Lesnar was an NCAA wrestling champion.
Kurt
Angle
is Olympic champion.
That's my last shot. Okay. So one of the things I think is really cool is the NBA is changing their playoff system with the play-in. I think has worked well. I think they're highlighting the stars this time of year. I'm going to turn to Lauren here because I think she's actually part of the Orlando Magic front office. I'm not sure at this point if she doesn't have a title with them. Tell everybody who doesn't know your fandom, and what do you think of the playoffs?
Yep. So longtime Magic fan, but happy to anybody who wants to join the bandwagon as we ascend. Very happy to have you. The playoffs are the best time of year, especially when the Magic are in the playoffs, which, doesn't happen a lot, but we're going back to back this year. Playoffs is the best basketball. It's kind of like with March Madness. Like, they're all playing with a different purpose and passion. And, if anybody watched, like Danny mentioned, the play-in is, win or go home for a lot of them. The Magic just won against the Atlanta Hawks the other night, which meant that Magic was in, and they earned their spot, but then Atlanta had to go and play against whoever won the Miami-Chicago game. Last night, Atlanta played Miami, and it was a crazy game. It went into overtime. It's really fun basketball. The passion is there. And you do get to see, the stars emerge, and it does also kind of level the playing field because Cleveland has been number one, all season. Nobody watches Cleveland games because they're not prevalent. They're not LA, they're not Boston. They're, LeBron's not there. So a lot of people haven't seen Cleveland in action, and they're kind of sleeping on Cleveland in their first place status. But this is when you get to see, especially players who maybe things have been a little quiet around Ja Morant because, injuries and controversies and what have you. So, he, is able, I love his new celebration, the grenades. But he's like, I'm here and I'm playing and I'm doing what I was built to do. And it's fun to see these players, all the distractions fall away. This is it. This is what they focus on. And it's really fun. And it's fun to see the emerging stars. Paolo on Orlando is amazing, and I'm biased, but he's amazing. Franz, Cole Anthony, Alex mentioned he collects Pokemon. He's awesome all around, and he had a really great game the other night. It's a fun time to kind of look at other players that you aren't typically spoon-fed. Of course, everybody loves the Lakers and LeBron and Luka. That's awesome. It's really cool, but it's cool to see the other players and the other, stories and the other skills come to the top. So,
from a card perspective, is Bankero underrated?
Yeah, I think so. It's, he was injured this year too, which definitely his cards took a hit from that because he was out for 22 games maybe. And also, it's Orlando. People aren't really watching Orlando. We've kind of been a joke for the last, decade and a half or so. So yeah, his cards are, I think by most people underrated. There are some people who are really passionate, but they're getting deals, and we have some Paolo, not a lot, but some. And, we feel good about the investment in him because we see him, we see what he has, we see what he brings to the table. We see that there is, potential for, future greatness for the franchise. He's going to be great no matter what, but But yeah, Palo I think is definitely undervalued right now.
Alex, do you get into NBA?
I do. So I get into the whole aspect. I mean, card wise and stuff is one thing, but I was listening to the radio the other day and they made a very good point. The way that they do the play-in actually benefits, your better seating, right? If you're out of the actual play-in, you get a nice little week-long vacation to rest up. Don't have to worry about, load management's a huge thing these days. I mean, to the point of, Paulo and is he underrated and stuff, is like, when you miss 20 games, you're automatically out of the running for any of the awards that year. So you can't be, all NBA, you can't be anything. So you're not going to have those titles, on your actual resume, even though you still had a grett season. You just happen to be hurt a little bit during the year. So, a lot of people tie the championships, the titles, and everything else and the MVPs and stuff to, how great of a player you were. And some of those players, are better than it actually looks, except when you have a MVP season, you average a triple double, but yet somehow the media is force-fed you someone else to win the MVP. But that's a different thing. But I think the way the playoffs are, and I have to agree with the people that I was listening to, is getting that week off, right? And then you win that first round like Orlando did. Now they actually got the rest of that week off before this weekend before they're playing. But if you're those lower seed teams that have to fight, you're going to have to go back to back, and then a couple of days, then you're going to be playing again. So winning this season or just making in the playoffs and not that the playing game, one, it's giving us more basketball, right? And it's in the middle of arguably the best time of year for sports. Think about this. March Madness is right after the Super Bowl, and then you have the Masters has happened. WrestleMania is happening. The NFL draft is happening this week. The NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. Everything is back to back to back. And it's just this time of year is incredible for sports.
I just put in the chat, SGA, Joker, Curry, or LeBron, who's the best? And I'm sure I'm leaving people out and everything else. But just for conversation's sake, these are four people who play the game very differently.
100%.
And I think we're seeing in the NBA right now, for people who haven't paid attention, the game is evolving. Analytics have hit the sport. Spacing on the court, has changed. Movement without the ball has changed. And when you look at, SGA, if you look at Joker, I mean, could you be built more differently? It's like the movie Twins with Schwarzenegger and DeVito. It's really, and I think that's a good thing. I think people like watching where not everybody is 6'6" and driving, to the hole every play, and it's done. I do think the game has evolved. And I think if you haven't watched them recently, it's good basketball right now.
100%, I agree. And the problem, people constantly just saying the Shea thing, right? This is wild. Shea is a point guard. He's 100% a point guard. Joker's a center, and he's second on average for assists, right? Yep. He is in the top 3 for points, rebounds, and assists for averaging a triple-double, right? And we're taking an MVP away from him because the MVP fatigue, that's the same reason with like Lamar Jackson, right? And everything else like that. The fact that, I forgot, my bad. I definitely shouldn't have went that round. Because Lamar. So, I mean, Shea is 14th in the league in average assists, and he's a point guard, 76th in rebounds, first in points, of course, and he's still 21st in field goal percentage. Joker's in the top 3. Like, you're taking away an MVP season all because the Oklahoma City won the West compared to the Nuggets. I don't like that. Everyone talks stats. Stats don't lie.
Lauren, how did the Nuggets fire their coach?
That's not.
I mean, it has got to be the biggest job that the advice I would give is rent, not buy. An NBA head coach is, don't even get comfortable in bed at night. I mean, you could be gone at any time. And so somebody made the comment in the chat, and that's the reason I brought it up, is which coach is going to get fired after one loss in the playoffs. And there's a lot of truth to that. But I want to look at the player side of it. And Alex made a lot of good points. Who in the playoffs this year has room to grow in their value of their cards? LeBron, another title will give him a temporary bump, and then he'll probably come back to where he is. SGA, has he already maxed out for this season, or does the MVP do it? I mean, is Tatum finally, if Boston does anything? Any thoughts on
Mobley.
Who? Would you say
Evan
Alex?
Mobley? Evan Mobley from the Cavs.
Yes, the one that the non-sexy Cleveland Cavaliers, as Lauren was talking about. Yeah, but both of you guys, I'll throw this to both of you. Who has the most to gain? Is it Mobley? Is it Banchero?
I think probably Cleveland definitely. Cleveland definitely, I think, has, room to grow. Did the Mavs fire a kid? Is that true, or is that
this just came in? I if that's true,
Breaking
let
news.
us know.
Because I was gonna say when
banner.
you mentioned Denver, I was gonna say if Jason Kidd can keep a job, then I don't know why anybody else is. But anyway.
Good thing you didn't say it.
I told you she's in the front office somewhere. Some team has her.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. But like Houston, people are still not talking about Houston and what the Rockets have been doing. They have one of the Thompson twins. They have Jalen Green. They had a really good season too, and I think they are also forgotten. And I think that they're young and do have room to grow. So I think Cleveland definitely, but I also don't know that Cleveland will ever get. I don't think players from Cleveland, other than LeBron, will ever get the love and attention in the hobby that they deserve. And like you mentioned Jason Tate, I don't understand necessarily why people don't love Jason Tatum. It's really interesting that the Celtics, they won last year. They're a very good team. They're Boston, and their players are like not beloved by the hobby. Like Jaylen Brown, he was the MVP last year. He's and I don't know, maybe it's like the personality thing that they're kind of quiet or that whatever, but yeah, it's really interesting to see like what plays out in as far as the cards. I think with Shea, I think like with outside of the hobby, I think he like is a little overpriced. This is personal, so I'm sorry if that offends people. I think that there is hype that's built into him that's like a little overvalued. I think Jokic, as good as he is, he's probably undervalued. So that's
Jokic keeps these numbers up. He's going to be literally in the conversation, be top 5 player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the concept. The concept is all these prices of cards. Everyone has cards. They think that all they think is like Mantle, Jordan, Brady. They think Trout, how those prices were outrageous, right? For the rookies and stuff. So everyone buys these rookie cards thinking, okay, they're eventually going to be that at that price someday, but they never hold them. They just reflip them and sell them again. No one uses as actual investment. So I think it goes down to maybe it's Anthony Edwards going against and beating the Lakers, beating LeBron and Luka, that helps his rise. It depends on the matchups and how they're actually playing in that game will help so much with card prices.
Yes, and we are all buying page backers. I think that's an excellent point. We look back, and I've had this conversation with people that there's eras of athletes, and there seems to be one or two cards that becomes the symbol of that era, whether it's the 52 Mantle, the 89 Griffey, the 86 Jordan. There's just certain cards, like you said, Alex. And for this generation, nobody talks about. Some card will come out of this generation. Some card will be my son's Griffey, and what is that card? And we've learned it's probably not a 101. It might be a limited card, but it's something that people are exposed to. It's a player that has popularity. And typically they can overcome a small market. LeBron being the only person to come out of Cleveland with value, and Orlando, nothing personal. I think it's very hard to come out of there with value in a big market. So, I mean, you're talking about Joker. I mean, he could be that guy for this generation. But is there, for lack of a better term, is there a sex appeal?
I think that's someone else. I think it might be Clayton Clark. I think it might be, someone like her, honestly, in this era. If you think about it, there was so much bunched around, you have around Joker, you have Mitchell, you had Tatum, you had all those individuals that were a little bit before and a little bit after, the WWE, going back to WNBA, right? You got a few of her, with Angel Reese, with Paige Beckers coming out and everything. But, the fact that her market is still up, right? And it could be depending on if she just continues the same realm. Maybe it's a Caitlin Clark.
Oh, it's a great point. Vintage Card Collector says the Luka base Prism rookie is our 89 Griffey Upper Deck. I see the point. It's a very popular card. There's a lot out there. Yeah, I think this happens to a lot of people. Caitlin Clark on draft night was running 100 to 200. They printed, what was that, 41,000, if I'm reading that correctly, and it was $10 when it was released. Yeah, that's going to happen on a lot of players. That's not specific to Caitlin. However, what if she's not the best player out of Beckers, Juju Watkins? I mean, all these other people. Asia Wilson could be the person for the generation.
Beast.
Well, I mean, she could. There's more MVPs out there. So the WNBA, not just. I wonder if Caitlin's going to be looked at as the first of the next generation or the best star.
And remember, are we looking at these individuals as the generational talent, the ones that we remember? Remember, like, we followed LeBron from when he was, a teenager. We followed these individuals when they were young. Bryce Harper, not even Mike Trout, but all these individuals when they're young. Victor, when he was over in France, and have that hype. Joker was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial, right? Asia Wilson. No one talks about her rookie cards and everything, right? Is the media and the talk helping determine what that card is?
Well, when she goes to the Hall of Fame, I think people will find her cards.
Well,
all right. Can I transition slightly before we run out of time? I've heard of a trend of a lot of people on social media, a lot of people I talk to, vintage cards actually grading down. If you have a 7, maybe finding a 5 with just as good of an eye appeal. I think a lot of people complain about the consistency of grading across all the companies anyway. So you might find a 6 that looks as good as a 7, a 4 that looks as good as a 6, or whatever it is, and save a lot of money. Sell the more expensive one or pass on it completely. Lauren, are you buy the card, not the grade, or do you have to have the grade if you're reselling it? What's your view on I guess raw versus graded, and then eye versus number?
I guess it depends, because I have been thinking about this a lot lately, and it depends on how much I want the card, and also I don't know. See, there's just so many different angles to take and so many different ways that people can feel about it. But I like the looks of cards. Like I do kind of prioritize the eye appeal over the hype or the the specificity of like what makes it special to whatever product it's coming from. If I don't like the way it looks, then I'm not totally interested. Like Coco, I collect Coco Gauff, and I collect as much as I can and don't really care about the grades. But if I was deciding, I have too many, I would like to downsize, or I would like to reinvest this into something else that I collect, I do prioritize the grade. I look and see. And I look and see, with Chrome cards, there's not really a lot of variation sometimes to the naked eye between a 9 or a 10 or an 8 or a 10, which I know is not vintage. And I know that's kind of what is spurring this conversation. But yeah, I think if it was vintage, there is, I think, more eye appeal to those cards than there is, like technicality, because of, the age of the paper and the materials used to make them and that kind of thing. So for me, it is, I would probably say overall, I would prioritize the eye appeal. But if it's, I don't know, if it's something that you've been like just running after for so long, and you're like, I'm just going to extend myself and like really invest in this card that I've wanted because of the higher grade. I guess it just depends on like where your priorities are. Even that day might, the day to day, I might, like, I don't know. I guess it just kind of depends on, as a collector, what mood you're in. But I can understand both sides, depending on, and also with the, how you're feeling about the financial market and stuff from day to day. That might influence you. So I guess it's kind of more that, not really an either or, but maybe like a tipping scale, that you kind of just check in with, your gut as, the opportunities appear.
Army, really curious your thoughts on this. I know both of you guys are at a lot of shows. At Chantilly, you saw more of the floor than I did. I saw a lot of raw vintage, and I saw people not throwing high grades in my face. If I were to ask for a card, they would say I have one in a 3 and a 4. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't just say, here's my best one, and try to sell me the most expensive one. Are you, same kind of questions I asked Lauren, raw versus graded, number versus IPO, where do you fall?
Well, so fall into always, buy what you like, right? That's the key, buy cool cards. I think it goes in different aspects, right? I think everyone can see and starting to understand the cards that don't lose a lot of value are those vintage cards. And guess which way they're going to go up? If they're not losing value, they're going to go up. So if you buy a 3 right now, next year might be selling at a 4 or 5 pace. I think more people are possibly buying into these lower grades for the aspect of the scarcity of these cards are going to start happening, because true collectors, I'm not saying that, the person who flips is not a true collector and everything. The collectors are out there buying these cards and they're not putting them out to sell. They're keeping them. Those individuals that are putting the raw cards and those lower grades in your face, they're probably not showing you the 8s, the 7s, the 9s, the 10s, because they're at home and they're safe. They're home, they're not coming out. Those are the ones that they're holding on to as an investment, but they can move these other smaller cards. So more individuals are going around buying, these vintage cards at low grades, possibly expecting, a year from now, 2 years from now, that, that low grade is going to be worth more, because it's just, that's what the trend is.
Do either one of you nerd out on pop reports ever?
I do. I 100% do. I look for the unique type of cards that have the very low pop count compared to other ones. And I'll use an example of a modern card, not so much a vintage card. Joe Burrow, Prism Silver PSA 10, which is, cream of the crop of his, regular rookie cards, whatever, thousands that are graded PSA 10, right? The Mosaic Silver is like 150 PSA 10s, right? Wow. And the fact that there were, back in 2020, it was like 1 silver rookie per box. There weren't as many. So understanding that aspect of that low pop count for that PSA 10, which is just the base silver, compared to the Prism, which is, 10 to 20 times that. I like that kind of stuff, holding that stuff and everything, to be like, down the road, that should be the one that possibly is going to go up, because it's not that many out there.
Lauren, is that something that affects your world, buying, selling? Do people talk about pop reports, or is it one-on-ones and just what's on the card? I know, a lot of people look at the scarcity of what's printed on the card out of 99, and then there's the actual pop report. So kind of two different ways to measure.
Yeah, and for me personally, I think it's interesting data. I don't know that it necessarily impacts how I move, but I do think it's always interesting data to examine. I think it does factor in for some people that, what we've seen, when we're at tables, which, so it's just our experience. People will check if they're kind of coming down to, if the numbers are too far apart with, recent comps or something. That's kind of another level that they'll, advance to, like, okay, well, how many, there are this many out there, so I don't know, I think it's, for me, it's just another piece of interesting data to factor in. Does it mean the bottom line? Usually not for me, but I know for some people it does. They want to know, how hard is this to pursue? How frequently will I encounter it in the wild? How frequently will I find it, online? From another collector, somebody showing it off. So, yeah, it's interesting data to see, and like you said, vintage is going to dry up because that's just the nature of the beast. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We're at an interesting time, I think. I think we are at a turning point within the hobby right now, with a lot of with I think a lot of things, with grading, with vintage, with modern. I think we're all kind of having a little bit of for lack of a better term, a reckoning. But there's a shift. I think there's a shift happening across the hobby to how we're all moving and how things are, like, what the projection is for the future, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I think this is a non-positive or negative comment, but anytime you have a company come in, acquire a lot of licenses, you have other companies that have to change their business models. You're going to get innovation. You're going to get some people who are going to be a little stagnant on products. You're going to get a lot of different things, and it is kind of a, you look to the left, everything moves to the right. You look to the right, everything moves to the left time in the hobby. But there is a comment in here, and I love this. Buy cool cards, stay in your lane. Yeah, just buy what you love. Don't chase what other people are buying. Buy cool cards. Buy what you like. I'm going to take that as a positive comment, and I like that. Larry says grading has really changed, much tougher, and the numbers does not mean as much, especially on older holders. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, that a newer holder and an older holder will pull different values, even if it's the same number. So another reason to maybe buy the card you like, not the number you like. All right, we're on the 2-minute warning here, so we'll finish up as we always like to. Army, what are you buying? What are you chasing? What are you doing in the hobby in the next week or so? Or what have you picked up
next week or so? I'm actually, it's crazy, non-sport Genesis Rainbow of Cyclops. Pretty sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, I only need the 101. I'm not finding the super. But I have the purple out of 15 coming, and I just need the black out of 10. But what I'm doing this weekend, I'm going to be in Cleveland for the Great Lakes Convention show up there, sponsored by Greeny Sports Cards, and going up there and do a lot of fun stuff. I'm going to have a table. I'm not even going to be selling cards at. I'm just going to have a table sitting down, talking to people about their stories, about their cards that they have, and everything else. I just want to, and I'm doing a whole bunch of things. They have a live media thing, so it's going to be pretty cool. But are you
doing autographs and pictures?
Yeah, I mean, if they want it, I don't know. I think of the value will go down as soon as the pen hits. So it's just like you're leaving the car lot when you buy a new car, right? And as soon as it's gone, the price goes down. But the weekend after that, I'm going to be in Dallas, so back-to-back weekends, going to be traveling to some bigger shows. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Lauren, I think we know where you're headed, but what's on your horizon? What have you picked up, if anything, lately, other than a lot of angst from the Magic?
Well, one of the benefits of being on the road is that you can hit a lot of different card shops and a lot of different retail stores. And so, this is actually a box that fell out from our most recent trip. We found some WNBA Prism. So that we were opening up a lot of that because we lucked into it. There was just a lot of it. The cool thing about traveling across the country too is that there's different demographics. People care about different things. To circle back to Pokemon, it's practically non-existent right now where we're at in Arkansas, but We've been good with the Bowman U, and we've had some NBA. I think we had Prism. I think we just had Prism, but yeah, right now that's we're just kind of trucking through, making our way towards Dallas, and seeing where the road takes us. But right now we're being degenerates, and we're ripping a lot of product when we can luck into it. So,
as I learned today, it is degens. So
right, the cool kids are saying degens.
the kids are yes, exactly. Real quick, James says, if you're in Arkansas, go camping and hunt for diamonds.
All right, we'll check on the first. I'll work on the second one. It's good to know.
Really. Alex, thank you, buddy. Good seeing you. Appreciate it. Lauren, thank you so much. Chat room, kick butt today. Always a pleasure. If I missed anything on the chat room, I apologize. You can yell at me in my DMs. This is 341 every Saturday on Bench Clear Media, Hobby Hotline at 11 a.m. Eastern. Have a good one.